Mysterious girl, move your body close to mine. Come on, move your body.
Come on, move your body.
Oh, man. They're thinking of making vaping illegal in Australia, but there are some times where you just need that kind of like liquid mercury in you. You just need to be doing something and thinking, wow, I'm slowly killing myself. And I think that that is best described by reading any of the books on this list. So it's time for the second half of my little year so far recap, which is where I go through the worst pieces of shit I've read so far this year. Boy, were there some stinkers. Boy, oh boy, were there some stinkers. It's gonna be the same sort of structure. I have a couple of honourable mentions, and then we're gonna do from 5 to 1, with 1 being the worst book I've read. I've covered nearly all of my top 5, bottom 5. I've nearly covered all of them on my channel already in separate reviews, except for my number 1 book, which is my least favourite book I've ever read ever. So stay tuned for that. I'm already just dreading talking about this. Alright, I have one honourable mention for the list, and that honourable mention is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. That's right, that's an honourable mention. There are 5 books I read that are worse. Anyway, It Ends With Us. Very, very funny book. Very silly. I love Wattpad tier books written by grown women with publishing contracts. I think it's my favorite genre. It's funny bad, and I will always appreciate that more than a book that is just bad, so that's why this is only an honourable mention. But yeah, check it out if you want to die. Now we move on to my bottom 5. These range from being agonizingly cringe to offensive and intellectually stunted. Let's go! Number 5 on my list is The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Australia's very own Richard Flanagan. A book so pretentious and so intensely enamoured with its own super treacly, annoying 11-year-old level interpretation of the world that it becomes a fucking hurricane of cringe. This book is about a main character who was a POW, and then after that he isn't. I could not stand so much of this book's tone. It thinks it's so fucking romantic and deep, but it is Jughead Jones tier. Okay, let's just get started. The title of this book is so shit, right? I don't care if it's the name of a book of classic Japanese poetry or something. It's a dumb title, and a lot of his books have dumb titles. One of his books is called The Sound of One Hand Clapping, right? Imagine trying to read a book that's about something normal, right, and it has a title like that, so when you start reading, you're thinking about someone fucking doing that. Names in general are not Flanagan's strength. The main character of this book is Dorigo Evans. Yeah, Dorigo Evans, absolutely normal name. I believe Dorigo was actually number 1. They did a poll for Australia for most popular baby names, and I think Dorigo was number 1. Fuck. Dorigo Evans. What is he, the brother of Lemony Snicket? Good joke, Alex! This book ranks so fucking hollow. A lot of it takes place in POW environments, but because the book is so inside a character's head, and it's so kind of loosely detailed, I never got a good sense of what was happening, and I felt like I, in this case, needed it, because bad things are happening, and I needed to know where they were happening and why it mattered that they were happening, and kind of like I needed a sort of sense of perspective about how it was bad. Every now and again I got that and it was really good. I remember one passage where they're walking through the forest and one of the characters loses the sole of their shoe, and they start breaking down and everyone's like, wow, he's gonna die, and the implication is that when you lose the sole of your shoe, you're gonna die from infection and stuff like that. That was really great, and it was like specific enough that I was like, that's a really great detail, I can believe he found that out for himself. But there were so many other times where the book would go for 100 pages and I go, wow, things happened, but boy oh boy, could I not tell you what they were. And I think a big problem with that is dialogue without quotation marks, which is a stylistic choice I think I'm just against morally at this point. It adds the smallest of cosmetic enhancement to books, but as a result really impedes the reader's ability to distinguish dialogue from action and glide naturally over the page to understand the difference between the two. I fucking hate that shit. Any writer that does that is not immune from that criticism. Even fucking Cormac McCarthy is not immune from that. And there will be pages of Cormac McCarthy where I'll go like, right, what's what? What's dialogue? What's happening? Who's speaking? Like, shut up, you know? There are so many stupid moments of sentence construction and Flanagan building pretentious allegories out of nothing. It got really cringe, but it was like Jughead Jones, to the point where I was reading sections of the book in Cole Sprouse's voice, and it became marginally better. My favourite quote from the book. "Why don't we remember clouds," he said. Because they don't mean anything. And yet they're everything, thought Dorigo. Oh my fucking god.
I don't fit in.
I was excited to read more of Flanagan's work, but I think I'll put that on hold for now. Fucking hell, man. This book won the Booker Prize in the same year that The Wake that I talked about in my other video was only long-listed. Just in case you needed any more proof that that award was a hunk of shit. Yes, everyone, that's right. I think The Narrow Road to the Deep North is a worse book than It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. What are you gonna do about it, huh? Alright, number 4 on my list. I feel bad about putting it so low, but I have to. The book is trying, but I have to. It's Pyre. It's Pyre. I already want to die and we're at number 4. We're really doing well here. This book is repetitive, it's annoying, the characters are bad. The same scene happens every single time. The main conflict is not explored at all. It's totally ham-fisted, and it has a translation so bad that even the fucking translator agrees with me. Watch my really long review of that to see where I talk about that. I covered it in immense detail, and I feel bad. I know this book is beloved, and I think I do understand why people like it. I get it. But it's so not for me. I could not stand it. Sorry, guys. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know. It's not funny. So it's worse than Narrow Road to the Deep North because I wasn't laughing at it. I was more just like, really? Like, again? The same conversation again? Really? Anyway, yeah, whatever. Fuck it. I don't like it. Get rid of it. Alright. I'm thinking of drinking. Should I start drinking? Generally, I mean, not even in this video. Should I start up drinking again? Right, number 3 on my list is The Gospel According to the New World. I've talked about this book nearly every single video I've made. I'm not talking about it anymore. I fucking hate it. Enough. Enough! I'm not gonna speak any more on this, or the Bible, or Maurice Condé, until I read Segu again. I'm gonna read Segu again, and I think I might do a video on it where I'll compare that with Gospel. And maybe I'll read one of her other books as well. But I remember reading Segu and loving it, and then I came to this book and I felt like an insane person. I felt like a crazy person. I was like, was I wrong? Was I mad the whole time? Did I read the wrong book? Did it just like, was the word Maurice Condé, was that name written on Segu with like fucking marker, and it was some other author that was good? Like, I could not believe how incompetent Gospel According to the New World was. There was so much about it that was just so fucking dumb. And it's worse than Pyre, I think, because I could not understand for the life of me why she even wrote it. So yeah, bada bing, that's number 3, I guess. Now, number 2, I really had to mull it over. I had to decide if it was worse than The Gospel According to the New World. And eventually I decided that yes, Pod is worse than The Gospel According to the New World. There are things in Pod that piss me off more. Like the way that Pod is bad is more annoying to me than the way that Gospel is bad. Gospel is bad because it isn't trying. Like, it just isn't doing anything. It pretends it is, but it isn't. Pod is trying, but it's trying in like the wrong direction. This is a hate watch kind of thing where I love how much I fucking detest this book, to the point where I probably will read it again at some point in my life, but man oh man was I having a bad time reading this. It exercised my noggin to hate it. Like, in order to understand why it's bad, you have to do some like thinking. It's like that movie Burnt. Have you ever seen Burnt? The movie Burnt? Okay. This is going to be the most long-winded analogy in history, alright? Here we go. The ways in which the movie Burnt is bad is hyper-specific. And it's bad in a way where if you're just watching it and you're turning your brain off, you don't even realize that it's bad. But it is. It is. And it's bad in super specific ways that you wouldn't even notice if you weren't someone who, I guess, read a lot or was really critical when they read stuff. So here's an example of a scene from Burnt, and I'm going to explain why it's bad.
To get you 1 Michelin star, you have to be like Luke Skywalker. Okay? To get 2, you have to be whoever Alec Guinness was. But if you manage to get 3, you're Yoda.
Now, did you catch it? Did you catch what? Did you catch the mistake there? So in that scene, it's like a Star Wars analogy. And what writers do is when they're trying to write realistic dialogue and a character's giving an analogy or a metaphor, they're going to stammer over what they're saying, or they're not going to say it word perfect to how an analogy should be said, because it's a normal person and the person's going to say like or they're going to forget things. And that's how an analogy is written, at least in dialogue. That's how people write dialogue. But the reason this is bad is because when there's the stammer where the guy's like, this guy's like Yoda, and this other guy's like, well, whoever Alec Guinness was. A person that young would know who Obi-Wan was, and he wouldn't know who Alec Guinness was. What person knows Alec Guinness, but doesn't know the name Obi-Wan? Especially that age. That's not true. So that's why that dialogue is incompetent, is because it's trying to go for a super specific sort of thing that books do. It's trying to go for a super specific, like, type of method of writing, or sort of like tactic, but it's messed it up. And Pod does the same thing in other super specific ways. That's the link. That's the link between these two things. That's the plug that I'm connecting, that you'll never see anyone else connect like that again. The way that Pod is bad is in its world building. It might have the worst world building I've ever seen. It's in the way characters are the same. It's in the way that little things are wrong, little things are annoying, and they add up to a general picture of stupidity, to the point where the final scene happens where everyone fucking dies. It was like a perfect bad ending to a bad book. It was like a perfect crescendo of shit. I can poke needles through the writing of Pod in an identical way to Burnt, and it's a fun mental exercise, but it's really bad. It's really, really, really bad. I hope it wins the Women's Prize. That would be epic. I would love it. I can see the intention of the book all the time, but it gets fucked by the way it's written, and also the self-seriousness. It's more pretentious than Narrow Road to the Deep North, for sure. But it just fucks itself constantly, and it's fascinating to read, but it's really annoying. Most of those books I've talked about before, but now we're moving on to something in a totally different tier. This is a book where it transcended being bad. This is the first book where I've really found myself hating the author. Like, it was a book so bad that I started to detest the person beneath it. A book so bad, so angering to me, that it instantly jumped to #1, and it's the worst book I've ever read. I've read bad books that are like sort of stupid and dumb and not good, but I've never read a book that's pissed me off. It's so hard for a book to piss me off in a way that like cuts to my bone. I'll be pissed off by books in a kind of like superficial way, like, wow, that was bad, why am I reading this, why am I putting time into this? But this pissed me off in like a moral and intellectual sense as a reader. It like made me mad that an author would do this and think that they can get away with writing something this fucking shit and this boring and this annoying. And the book is A Little Life. Alright, real quick content warning about trauma and suicide and whatever the fuck else is in A Little Life. Alright, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk about A Little Life for the next 40 minutes and then I'm never gonna mention it again. Alright, here we go. A Little Life is cancer, which is ironic because cancer is the only thing that the main character Jude doesn't have to suffer through. Right, this book is an actual fucking 1 out of 10. I have the thickest of skins when it comes to trauma in books. I love it, actually. It's one of my favorite things. When characters are getting abused or killed or like bad things are happening to them and they're all crying, I love that. It's a great way to show character. I love it when books have the balls to do that. Paradise is a perfect example of that. Fernanda Melchor's amazing at that. I love when books are dark. Dark is good. And I hate when people defend this book from criticism by saying that the reason people criticize it is because they couldn't stand the trauma in the book. Right, no, that isn't true. I couldn't stand this book because it was intellectually infantile and I could not believe how bad every single decision about it was. Every single decision, down to like word choices. It was all so bad. Alright, I need to relax a little bit because it's gonna end with me like tipping my camera over. It was like an intellectual offense to me. It was like a personal affront to me, the way that this book was written and how single-minded its goals were. To think that you can be that length and have that single-minded a goal, that fucking monotone, that single fucking goal for 900 pages is pathetic. You are pathetic. Her single-minded goal is just to make the audience sad. That's all her goal is, and she's admitted it, which I guess I respect, but that's all her goal is, right? For 800 fucking pages! Every character in this book is a pathetic worm that I wanted to crush under my feet. The book is valueless, it has no point, and I hate it. Right, this book has been praised for its betrayal of masculinity, by women I'll add, and it's also been praised as being the great gay novel. I'm now gonna read you a scene from this book. Okay, this is an argument between the main character, the pathetic worm Jude, and his boyfriend Willem. So Jude likes to cut himself and Willem's found him. Alright, here we go. I'm just gonna read some of the dialogue. You're crazy, Jude. To cut yourself on your legs of all places? You know what can happen. You know you can get infected there. What the hell are you thinking? Stop trying to fix me, Willem, Jude spits back at him. What am I to you? Why are you with me anyway? I'm not your charity project. I was doing just fine without you. Oh yeah? Asks Willem. Sorry if I'm not living up to being the ideal boyfriend, Jude. I know you prefer your relationships heavy on the sadism, right? Maybe if I kicked you down the stairs a few times, I'd be living up to your standards? Jude hisses back at him. I'm not going to be the cripple you get to save for the one you couldn't. And then Willem throws the razor back down at Jude. Fine, he says. Fucking cut yourself to ribbons for all I care. You love the cutting more than you love me anyway. Some of the worst dialogue I think I've ever read in a book. This is the Booker-nominated masterpiece everyone was telling me about. This isn't like a 13 Reasons Why Season 2 script. Are we serious? Here's another ridiculously overdone scene where Willem finds Jude cutting himself and then joins in to make him feel how he feels. Stop it, Willem, shouted Jude, almost in tears. Willem, stop it, you're hurting yourself. Oh yeah? Asked Willem, and he could tell by how bright Willem's eyes were that he was almost crying himself. You see what it feels like, Jude? And he made a third cut, cursing again. Willem, moaned Jude, and lunged for his feet, but Willem stepped out of his way. Please stop, please, Willem, please! He had begged and begged, but it was only after the 6th cut that Willem stopped, slumping down against the opposite wall. Fuck, that hurts! Leave me alone, Jude, he said. But you need to bandage them, he said. Bandage your own goddamn arms, Willem said, still not looking at him. This isn't some fucked up ritual we're going to share, you know, bandaging each other's self-inflicted cuts. I wasn't trying to suggest that, said Jude. I'm now going to put up some bad scenes of movies where characters talk about self-harm that get clowned on in a way that this book doesn't.
Hey, what's going on here?
I have a gun.
All right, well, let's just take a breath here. Slowly take your hands out of your pockets so no one gets hurt.
People are already hurt. Nobody ever pays for these things that happen. No one ever pays, and someone should. Are you sorry? Because that doesn't do a fucking bit of good, because you are gone. You killed yourself. And you didn't fucking care.
I did.
No, you didn't, or you never would have done it.
I was hurting, and I didn't think about who I might hurt.
Don't you dare! No,
Your hands
please!
off her.
Don't, please! It's none of your business, you fucking Frankenstein!
Oh no. This child is my business, you little cunt.
This book is more self-important than Pod. It's double the length it deserves to be. The writing is incredibly poor, and whole pages will come off feeling totally insignificant and just meaningless, especially when you get to the end and you realize, wow, like nearly 90% of that was for no purpose at all. No character acts rationally, and then when the trauma does come, the trauma I'll talk about in a second more directly, when the trauma does come, I was laughing because it was happening to characters I hate. The main character, Jude, we spend the first half of the book doing absolutely nothing. It's kind of like The Secret History, where you spend 90% of that book doing nothing. You spend the first half of A Little Life doing nothing, and then you find out that the main character, Jude, was abused in a variety of ridiculous ways. And they're only made ridiculous by the fact that so many of them happen to him in consecutive order. And then he kills himself, like bad stuff happens to him and then he kills himself. And the way that he gets abused is sort of specific, and apparently the author refused to do any research into something like child sexual abuse, which is something that happens to him, or into like, I guess self-harm and stuff like that, I don't know. But there's a lot of discussion about how she didn't do any research into that. I don't care about that necessarily. I just think that there are some things that an author should have, like, the self-awareness and, like, the innate understanding of to not do a certain way. So when trauma is presented like this in the book, you'd think she'd have, like, more awareness that that's a dumb thing to do, that the trauma to happen one after another becomes ridiculous. You'd think that any normal, self-respecting author would be aware of that, but this author isn't, and the fact that she didn't do any research on it is the cherry on top. It's already stupid. If she had done research into trauma and presented it realistically, but it still happened the way it did to the main character, it would still be absolutely intellectually infantile and stunted and ridiculous. Andrea Long Chu, who won the Pulitzer Prize, I think it was this year, has this great article on Little Life. It's called Hanya's Boys. I'd really recommend you read that. It's fucking hilarious, and she just totally, like, destroys the book in a way that I'm not anywhere near caring enough to do. The book achieves its goal for some people, And it takes a long time to do that, but it does achieve the goal. But it's a goal that I don't respect. I don't respect the goal this book has. The goal this book has is to make the audience sad. That's the point of the book, and the author has talked at length about how that's the point of the book, and that's the sole point of the book. I wanted to write a book where a character doesn't get better, and can I still get dramatic tension out of a character not getting better? And it turns out you can't, but that might just be because the author's a fucking idiot. It has 600 pages of boring things that don't happen to get you attached to the characters, and that was so transparent that that was what it was doing, because I knew what the book was going into it. When we're spending all this time of, like, the characters being like, we like each other, and we're hanging out, and we're having fun, I was like, wow, this is just to get me attached to the characters that bad things can happen to them. It's so fucking transparent. It's like when a character gets introduced in a war movie and they're like, I have a family and here's my wife, and then they get fucking capped in the head the next scene. It was like that, but it was like so drawn out.
I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
Here's the progression. It's Jude gets abandoned by his parents. He gets put in like a fucking boys' home which is run by priests. He gets abused by a priest and prostituted out. He escapes from the priest. He then prostitutes himself for a while. He then ends up in the care of a doctor, and the doctor abuses him and makes him his sex slave, and then runs him over a couple of times with the car. And then he gets found by a woman, and the woman loves him and teaches him things, and then she dies of cancer. So actually I lied. Cancer is part of his story, sorry. Now he does have the whole list. So then she gets cancer and dies, then he meets his friends and he's happy for a little bit. And then... oh, fuck, what happens? Then fuck, I can't even remember. Then he finds a gay boyfriend that he loves, but the gay boyfriend starts abusing him and beats him naked through a hotel in one of the funniest scenes in any book ever. It was so fucking ridiculous. That happens, and then whenever anyone's like, we should probably get you some help, he's like, no, I don't deserve it, me. And when a character keeps doing that, it becomes really hard to find sympathy for them. It really does. Like, I get... the people are like that, there are people that are like that, but it becomes so hard to find sympathy for a character that refuses to get better, even when it's presented to them so clearly, right? Like, I get I should have more, it's kind of like, I should have a higher EQ to be able to emote to that, but no, I don't think the author deserves it, I don't think I will. No, I think I'll call this character a wimpy piece of shit if I feel like it. So then that happens, and then he finds another gay boyfriend that he loves and that loves him, and they have a good relationship for a little bit. And then this other boyfriend dies in a car crash, and apparently that's the breaking point. Before that point he was okay, but then that's the breaking point. He's like, no, now it was too much. Before that point it was an acceptable level of trauma, but now this is just getting ridiculous. And then he kills himself. And that's the book. I love that my description of that sounded so hyperbolic, but it literally wasn't. People call this the saddest book of all time. Fuck off, it is not. It is not sad when a book is this calculated, and as I said, transparent. It's so like cynically trying to get you to be like, isn't this sad? Aren't you sad? Oh my god, look. Oh, this is so sad. Oh my god, someone stepped on a baby. Isn't that sad? Oh, fuck. Oh my god, someone accidentally shot a dog and it's dying in the owner's arms while they cry. Isn't that sad? Oh my god, I threw a puppy into a river and it drowned. Isn't it sad? Oh my god, I fucking killed my own son. Isn't that sad? Oh. I was talking about Fernanda Melchor in my other video in her book Paradise and how she manages to get inside a man's head. And I swear to god, you'd think that the woman who wrote this book lived in a fucking convent her whole life. The way that she doesn't understand how men work at all. It's ridiculous. And I think the fact that they're gay makes the book slightly more buzzed about and talked about. The fact that the main characters are gay, I mean. I think that's what makes it more buzzed about, but it does make it feel a little more dangerous when it is just people being sad all the time. There's that great quote from The Last of Us show.
This isn't the tragic suicide at the end of the play. I'm old. I'm satisfied. And
that's commenting on the idea that being gay is always approximated with suffering, and I guess suicide is a more specific example of that. But in literature for a long time, being gay was always a sad thing. Only sad things could happen to gay characters. And when people call this the great gay novel, it really rubs me the wrong way, because it literally just does the same thing. But for some reason people think it's better? Like, I don't get it. I don't get why you guys like this. I haven't seen a rational reason as to why this book is good from anyone, other than, wow, it's sad and it succeeded at being sad, which makes it a good book. No, I could write a book this sad if I really tried to. I could pull from any fucking sad movie and I could slam all that shit together and make a book as sad as this. And that's literally what this author did, basically. Not even Christ the Redeemer suffers as much as this main character Jude. Not even on the cross, Yahweh, Yahweh, God, why have you forsaken me? Not even Jesus Christ himself suffered this badly. Okay, so I've talked about the content of this book a lot, which is obviously what people talk about, but I think the writing is also incredibly shoddy. And for an example of that, I'm going to give you the first sentence of the book. Here we go. The 11th apartment had only one closet, but it did have a sliding glass door that opened onto a small balcony, from which he could see a man sitting across the way, outdoors in only a t-shirt and shorts, even though it was October, smoking. Right, here's all the information, right? There's an 11th apartment that it has one closet, it has a sliding glass door that opens onto a small balcony. There's a character that's as yet unnamed, and that character that's unnamed can see another character that's a man sitting across the way, whatever that means, and that other character is outdoors, and he has clothes on, he has very specific clothes on, and it's October. We make sure to mention the month in the first sentence, and it's also, that character's also smoking. How much information do you need in the first sentence of your book, right? This is like high school level of English creative writing, and it's not subverting that in a way that would be like unique. It's not playing with convention or form by subverting the rules of high school creative writing. It's doing it in a way where it makes me think like the author has English as their second language. The success and praise this book has is what makes me loathe it the most. If this book was like forgotten about, I wouldn't care, but the fact that this is a Booker-nominated book is very funny and makes the committee seem so shoddy for that year. I wish it would have won. That would have been hysterical. I bet the author likes that it makes people mad too. I bet they think that like, oh, my book is so controversial because it's so profound and ahead of its time and it's so forward. And it's always good for a book to inspire discussion. I would almost like the idea of, there are some parts of the structure that I like in concept in this book. It kind of deals with the subconscious a little bit, and part of the thriller aspect of the book that the author's talked about is the way that part of the thriller is getting into the subconscious to find out what Jude is hiding in there. And the way that it plays with past and present tense is actually quite good at points. The way that the trauma first comes into the book feels like sort of natural, like it just kind of glides in. It's really good, and it comes at a point in the narrative that I really liked. Yeah, so that's the only thing in the book that had promise to me was the structure. But yeah, if this book was good, I would like it. That's a great quote for the blurb, isn't it? If this book was good, I would like it. There's no point to it. The author hasn't had any of this stuff happen to her, and I know that for a fact, so I can't read this as like an uber-realistic depiction of that, because that would be a worthy point. I would like it if it was that. But it's not. It's just coming from some random woman who doesn't care, and who's just written a book trying to make you sad. Apparently making someone cry is like a worthy emotional reaction, but it's so easy to do, just in the same way that if you wrote a book that was just about trying to make you laugh, it would be kind of like whatever, or a book that's just trying to make you swoon and go, oh my goodness. Like, it's an easy thing to do to get one single emotion out of a reader. It's so easy. You want a complex moral center. You want complex themes. You want to be dealing with things, and this book doesn't. So yeah, it's a 1 out of 10. It's panned. I pan it in the head. I think at this current moment in my life, it's my least favorite book that I've ever read. It's definitely the worst book I've read this year, and I think that if you like it, you should go on a very long quest for introspection and self-fulfillment. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I've lowered my self-worth just by talking about it, so I hope you guys can appreciate the strain this has put on my soul.